It's been a very productive week for us. We're still, transitioning into football, and there's a lot of significant work to be done in that regard. More than anything, we're talking about culture building things, how we practice, how we compete professionally, how we compete appropriately based on attire. This week, we're now in helmets, and so we talk about some environmental things that we value in the work that we can get done when you're working in helmets, some things that we need to stay away from in terms of shoulder contact, and in an effort to keep everyone healthy and upright. We're still familiarizing ourselves with some of the newer people and their skill sets relative to their positions, and getting to know one another in that way. That includes the positioning of people, particularly in the special teams area. That's something that really has our attention in this environment. With no preseason games, it's important that we make thoughtful decisions about the placement of people in the special teams capacity, but also once we get in place, the competitive aspect of practice and creating an environment where we can make some evaluations in that area is something that's on at the front of our minds as we continue to get adjusted to what we're doing here. But largely, it's been a good week. Much like I said a week ago, continually impressed with the things that were important to us coming into this environment. The overall conditioning of the group, they're continuing to display good preparedness in that area. And the rest of it is just teaching and learning. And I like the attitudes that everyone is bringing in regards to that. I'll be happy to open it up for questions.
Okay, the first question is coming from Dale Lawley from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Dale, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, you referenced finding things out about the new guys. One of your new guys is Derek Watt, fullback. Obviously, he's going to be a big part of that special teams group. But what can he bring to your offense that maybe a new wrinkle or just something that maybe you haven't used as much with the fullback in recent years?
I think we're in the process of discovering that as we familiarize ourselves with him and his skill sets and the things that he does well. The known aspect of his game that was really attractive to us was his high level of productivity in special teams. I think he and Tyler led the NFL in special teams tackles a year ago. And because we had an opportunity to play against his team last year, we also were very respectful of his functional fullback skills. But some of the off the beaten path things, maybe some of the additional things, we're going to learn about him along the way.
Okay, next question is Mike Pursuta from WDVE. Mike, go ahead.
Mike, are you on schedule? Will you in fact have the pads on starting Monday? And is it going to look like a traditional camp? Will you be doing backs on backers, wide receiver, DB, Oklahoma, live tackling, the stuff that we're used to seeing?
That's our intent, but we're also willing to adjust based on what it is that we see. From a staffing standpoint, we're very thoughtful about our long-term planning or not doing so. Getting familiar with the level of conditioning that these guys are coming to us in and getting a feel for their ability to take in and retain information that was delivered to them remotely are two of the key variables that determine the pace in which we move. And so those are our intentions, but we're willing to adjust based on what transpires between now and then. And that's really our mentality about this next month or so. We realize there's certain boxes that need to be checked between now and when we step into a stadium, but we also realize that we might have to alter the pace of some of those intended plans based on the readiness or lack thereof of the group. And, so we're just acknowledging that and openly being willing to be flexible when appropriate.
Okay, next question is from Joe Rutter from the Tribune Review. Joe, go ahead.
How important is it to you to have continuity on the offensive line, and especially coming in with a shortened camp and the way the season is, to have, three veterans that have been in there and done so much for you guys, and Al, Dave, and Marquise?
Particularly in this environment, I think continuity is an asset. In the offensive line, it probably gives you an advantage in terms of some of the unforeseen things that you could see in stadiums at the early portions of the season that you don't have a lot of video evidence of. That shared past experience that those guys have has the potential to be an asset to them, no doubt. But we're also going through some transition there. We've been looking exclusively at Matt Filer at left guard. He's also been a part of us, but he's been playing right tackle, and the two right tackle guys have been rotating, have gotten opportunities in the recent past that tight ends reported as eligible and such. We're hoping that playing experience and particularly that shared playing experience is an asset to a group in some unique times. And stepping into regular season stadiums without any video evidence of personalities or schematics of opponents is something that's worrisome.
Next question is from Brooke Pryor from ESPN.com. Brooke, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, when we talked to David DeCastro earlier this week, he was pretty blunt in his assessment of last year and just said that it sucked and he felt like things snowballed and the attitude wasn't great, at least the way that he felt. I'm curious if you agree with his assessment on that, and how do you balance taking the things you learned last year as a team while also kind of putting it in the past as you go forward this year?
You know, I don't know if I would have had those choice of words, but I agree with his general assessment. You know, when you're on the outside looking in at the tournament that determines the eventual champion, then that does suck. And so, you know, our goals are clear each and every year, and that's to compete for and ultimately win a world championship. And when we're not in that conversation, we absolutely hate it. In regards to this year, man, I never carry the bags from last year or worry about what transpired in terms of us writing the script for this journey. So I'm singularly focused on that, and I'd imagine Dave is as well. I'm sure he's just courteously answering questions.
Thanks.
Okay, next question comes from Ed Bouchette at The Athletic. Ed, go ahead.
Hey, Mike. What advantage is there for a veteran team with a veteran quarterback in this special season? And might that especially go on early in the season?
You know, I'd be speculating, Ed. I'm not going to pretend like those advantages exist as absolutes. There are some advantages of continuity, like I mentioned earlier, not only in this call, but in previous calls about having shared experience in an unstable or uncertain environment. But we're not going to make any assumptions or find comfort in some of those facts. We're just simply going to respect the circumstances that we're in as unique and as they are unique for everyone, and just respect them every day with thoughts and actions and prepare for the battle that lies ahead. And we know that adversity is going to be a big part of it, whether you got experience or continuity or lack thereof. That's just the nature of these NFL journeys.
Next question is for Aditi Kinkhabwala from NFL Network. Aditi, go ahead.
Good morning. You've talked a lot about having to mimic game environments in practice to sort of create that same feeling. So how do you do that? And in all your history of coaching, is it just a cliche that there are certain guys who turn it on when the lights are on? Or is there a truth to that some guys are better game players than practice players and we may miss out on that?
You know, I'm not necessarily talking about the gamer discussion when I'm talking about creating game-like circumstances. I'm talking about getting an opportunity to evaluate situational awareness, things that you don't often do in a practice setting, boxes that often get checked in preseason stadiums, such as a guy's ability to move from playing linebacker to left guard on punt team and knowing when to take the field and being engaged in transitional things like that, or guys being down and distance aware as the ball moves and the chains move. Oftentimes in a practice setting, the ball does not move, or the ball moves in a very scripted way. So there's certain things that happen in simulated gameplay. There's certain awareness things that are displayed that are part of the evaluation process that we have to work to create. And I'm not necessarily talking about a guy responding to a moment and rising up in it. I'm talking about professionalism things, awareness things, things that are common in game play that aren't necessarily common in a controlled or spotted like practice setting.
Okay, next question is
So,
from
wait,
Will
can I
Graves
jump
from-
back? Bert, can I jump back with that second part though? Does that exist? Is there a piece of that? Or is there a gamer? Is there a guy that plays better under the lights? Or is that
If there is, he won't get an opportunity to display it in this environment. So he better be a practice player.
Okay, Will Graves from the Associated Press. Will, go ahead.
Hey, Mike, you talked about the guys conditioning coming in. First of all, do you anticipate anybody not being available next week that isn't already on that other list, the COVID list? And second of all, especially with the running backs, do you have to be mindful of how you share the snaps from a physical standpoint because of the wear and tear at that position?
I'm not going to make any speculations about people in the COVID protocol. I've learned quickly not to speculate about that. It's kind of like the concussion protocol, man. I'm going to very much stay in my lane in regards to comments on that.
Well, no, I meant guys that aren't like physically, like not outside of the COVID guys, which I assume won't be available until they're cleared by the league or whatever. I meant specifically like physical ailments, guys that will for football injuries or for whatever. That's what I meant.
I'm not worried about any long-term work missed by anyone at this juncture. In regards to the depth at the running back position or the preservation of those guys, at this juncture, I'm more concerned about putting them in situations where I can get to know them and evaluate them and see them compete than I am worried about preservation at this time.
Okay, a couple more. Next up, Jerry Dulac from the PG. Jerry, go ahead.
Mike, good morning. Both your coordinators have been with you a long time, going back to college, and both appear to be unselfish and willing to accept outside input and share responsibilities. Keith works closely with you. How important is that, Mike? And is that something that is uncommon?
I don't know whether or not it's common or uncommon. I know that it is appreciated here. That's one of the reasons why we've had such long-standing business and personal relationships. Speaking on those two men, they don't care who gets the credit. They simply want to win. They display that unselfishness in everything that they do and have over the years in a number of roles in a bunch of different locations. And so it's important to me, and I think it's a winning edge for us. But how common or uncommon that is, I really can't speak to.
Two more questions. Next one, Jeff Hathorn from 93.7 The Fan. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Mike. We talked to Steve Nelson the other day, and he was telling us about that he maybe feels a little underrated at his position. Do you like coaching guys that have that chip on their shoulder? And what does Nelson mean to what you do defensively?
I certainly like a guy that has an edge, a guy that'll do whatever it takes to find that edge. That feels like a comfortable place for Steve in terms of being overlooked for his quality of play and consistency of play. And those are the two things I really value about him. I just told him the other day as he and I were walking down the hall that it's been his presence has been an enjoyable experience for me and us. He's low maintenance. He's very consistent. He's highly professional. He just checks a lot of boxes, and that tandem of he and Joe Hayden are one of the central reasons why we're excited about the potential of that back end group. Obviously, we've got to come together and do the work. But those two guys, that level of professionalism, that level of consistency in terms of their day-to-day approach to preparation and ultimately their play is really attractive to a guy in my position.
Okay, final question before we let Coach go. Mark Caboli. Mark, go ahead.
What's up, Mike? Mike, Le'Veon made a significant change in his body from year 1 to 2. Same with Connor, and it appears that Benny Snell did the same, especially with running backs. And that span between rookie and second year. In your experiences, what clicks in them that tells them they need to go that route?
I think not only running backs, and it's a legitimate discussion that you mentioned because of the guys that you mentioned, but I think it happens across all positions. I think that continual discussion that we have about the difference between year 1 and year 2, you're speculating in year 1, in year 2, in terms of what's required of you, not only in the short term, but just the overall journey itself, the level of conditioning required. We talked quite a bit a year ago about the transformation of James Washington's body with that knowledge and understanding, for example. I believe that you guys will see a significant physical difference in Diontae Johnson, since we're talking about receivers along those lines this year. I think you can look at any position and see growth and development in terms of understanding between year one and year two and appropriate actions taken because of it. Whether it's guys adding bulk and strength for the long-term fight, or whether it's guys getting lean and finding professional tendencies or professional rhythms in terms of diet and nutrition. There's a lot of reasons why those bodies transform, but it has a lot to do with knowledge as opposed to speculating.